Nation. You're now listening to the most opinionated, the most exciting, the most son of a Schmidt. You guys actually do something useful here, right? Like, is anything you do even beneficial to someone? Whatever. Now to the show that literally has tens, that's right, tens of followers. The show that brings the Ozone radio network to levels of mediocrity that only Michigan fans would know. This is the Sons of Schmidt, starring Mike Meals and Brandon Zimmerman on the Ozone radio network.
Welcome back, Sons of Schmidt fans. This is your host, Mike Meals. This is Season 3, Episode 17 of the Sons of Schmidt podcast. Today, we got a little something special for you here. I know we've talked about it last week that Brandon wouldn't be with us. He's taking his family vacation for Christmas, and we went and dug deep out of the bullpen and pulled out the old right-hander that we needed to step in. I know this offseason we're going to have a few different guys that are going to come on. I know our old buddy Ben's going to be on. My friend Janelle's going to be on. You know, a bunch of important former and current Buckeye, obviously, fans, but guys that used to cover the team, different aspects, you know, different sports. I know at some point we will eventually talk more basketball. When you have a top 15 basketball team, at some point you have to mention them again. But this week, I'm excited and really happy to announce who our guest host is. Joining me live from the other side of the country this time, coming out of the Atlantic Coast region, is our good buddy, former Ozone member, still kind of in semi-retirement Ozone member. I'm not real sure what that ranking is, but our good buddy Joe Dexter. What is going on, Joe?
What's up, Mike? Man, you must have really went to the Real 5 draft to find me. Like, I'm like 87-mile-an-hour bullpen guy. You're not – I mean, you have to reach – I might even be minor league Rule 5 draft pick.
Hey, man, Greg Maddux never touched 100 either, and he's in the Hall of Fame. So it's not all about speed. It's about location and precision there, buddy.
And, you know, I'm not going to have the good looks of Brandon Zimmerman. I'm not going to be smart alecky like Brandon Zimmerman. I can't bring that game either, but I'm going to try my best to Schmidt this thing up, and we'll see what we can do here.
Hey, that's work. That's all we can ask for. So, you know, I'd mentioned it a little bit before we came on and started recording, but, you know, I'm not really going to worry too much about what's in your bourbon glass because I know you've got a little bit of other things going on. For the record, so we keep the streak alive, I am drinking a Bullet Bourbon old-fashioned that I made when I got home because I needed one after this day at work. But, Joe, the first thing I got to ask you here is, you know, what have you been up to lately? I mean, I know you've kind of had to step away a little bit from some of the Buckeye coverage. Obviously, you still follow the team really close. You know, Brandon and I talk about our group chats. You're in one of the group chats that we're in all the time. So what's been going on in your world, man? We haven't heard from you in a while. Why don't you tell everybody what's been going on?
Well, it kind of dropped off the face of the Buckeye earth, but I'm still here. I'm still watching games all the time, basketball, wrestling, football. But I'm a reporter now, a full-time reporter covering crimes, court, community here in North Carolina, not too far from our friend Ben Van Oyen. And I'd like to claim I am one of the tens. I always will be one of the tens, and I always will be the tens of the Sons of Schmidt. So that always, I'm a loyal listener. I think you guys have the best podcast out there for Ohio State. So I'm always listening to your show, keeping up on Ohio State. But, yeah, keeping busy in the reporting world, but I'm glad to talk some football when I get a chance.
Excellent, man. That's always good to hear. First of all, I appreciate you being a listener. And I know a lot of people like myself, you were one of the guys that had the first podcast that I ever really listened to. So, you know, getting you on the show, I know we've had you on a few other times, but getting you back on the show is always a highlight for me personally. And I know there's a few people out there like myself. So glad to get your audio out here again, man. So welcome back. On that note, I'm going to give you the floor here before we pause and go into our first segment. Is there anything you want to get out on tape before we start?
No, let's get going. Let's bring it. Oh, wait, one more thing. One thing.
Okay.
Muck Fishigan. Muck Fishigan. That's it. That's all I got.
That works. With that being said, we'll take a quick pause. We come back. I'm going to get some of your thoughts on the 2018 Ohio State season. So we'll be right back.
This is the Ozone Radio Network, a Hayes and Cannon production. For the latest episodes of all your favorite podcasts covering Buckeye Nation, look for the Ozone Radio Network on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, and Speaker. You can also find the latest episodes by clicking on the Hayes and Cannon tab at theozone.net. Once again, here are the Sons of Schmidt.
All right, Joe. So, we talked about this before. We've talked about it on the show, and obviously you and I and Brandon and Ben and a couple other guys have all talked about it. But Ohio State finishes the regular season in the first round of the postseason at 12-1, 9-1 in the Big Ten. They win the Big Ten championship, knocked off Michigan. They get a Rose Bowl invite. They are going up against Washington on January 1st in Pasadena. The first thing I want to know is, what were your thoughts on the Ohio State season this year? What stood out to you? What was just your overall take? What did you not like? And then here in a little bit, we'll go and get a little bit of thought on Urban Meyer and Ryan Day from you before we pause again. But go ahead and tell me what you thought of the season, man.
Well, I think the first thing that stuck out is this was a season that was fun to watch. There were so many things that were going on in the offseason, so many things going into the season, the 3-game suspension, yada, yada, yada. You guys have talked about that so many times. But you can throw that out the window because to me as a fan, watching Dwayne Haskins was one of the most enjoyable things. Seeing this offense evolve, and it evolves every year, but to see it to go to the step that it did with the playmakers on offense was just something that we just haven't seen as Ohio State fans in quite some time, which is crazy to say with all the talent that has been in Columbus. But to see how the offense evolved, I think to me that was the storyline. In every week, no matter what the score was, no matter where the game was, no matter if Ohio State was on top, whether they were down, you were watching and the offense was going to be something that you were keying on just because of the talent that emerged right away. It wasn't like some past times where you wait for the quarterback to kind of emerge. Dwayne Haskins, after last year coming into this year, we knew going into there was the whole Joe Burrow argument, but we knew going into the year that he was going to be ready. And I think he even with that being said, he obviously did way better than anybody could have expected and showed that he might be the best pro prospect quarterback ever to come to Ohio State. And maybe I know this is you can't really make an argument for the best quarterback, quote unquote, in Ohio State history because there's so many different ways to define that. But definitely he defined the season, as you guys have talked about so many times. And watching him and the offense change how they approach things was really fun to watch. I enjoyed watching the receivers, specifically Paris Campbell, guys like that, and KJ Hill, and how they evolved and how the H-back position even evolved in this offense to be a true weapon with the football in their hands from the air.
Okay. Now, the opposite of that, though, is there was obviously some things that Ohio State struggled with for what we're used to. Before we even mention the defense, the offensive line was not up to what we're used to as far as their play. There was a lot of struggle on big plays on defense. What were the biggest disappointments to you this year that you saw?
As a 3 yards in a cloud of dust type of guy on the offensive side, it was really frustrating to see the rushing offense. I think they finished outside of the top 25 in rushing offense. And really, they ranked alongside with Washington in that stat, which will be interesting coming up in the Rose Bowl. But when you look at the rushing offense, man, that's something where, as an Ohio State fan, with the guys that we've had the last few years, Ezekiel Elliott, J.K. Dobbins last year, the 1,000-yard rushing was there, but it just wasn't the same feeling. But maybe that's just a change in college football. And defensively, where do I start on defense? I guess I'll start with the defensive backs in the secondary, and not necessarily just the quote-unquote bad play, but the thing that frustrated me the most about the secondary was the amount of penalties that they had to endure in order to play the style that it seemed like they were trying to play, and that to me was the most frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, there were definitely quite a few times that you saw things like a pass interference call on Ohio State when the offense would still catch the ball, and that's frustrating for sure.
Yeah.
You know, when guys run into the receivers and stupid penalties there. But the next thing I want to ask you on this is it kind of just your feeling, because I've heard some of this from some people, and other people like myself have taken the opposite stance. Do you define this year as a failure because Ohio State lost to Purdue and doesn't go to the playoffs? Or is it a success, like I believe, and I believe Brandon was this way? Ohio State, as I mentioned, won the Big Ten. They beat Michigan. They only lost one game. They're going to the Rose Bowl. If you had to cap it one way or the other, which way do you go?
62. 7-0 for Urban Meyer against that team. That's all that I care about. I know that that's still old school, but playoffs are great. 4 teams, it's cute. And I'll talk about this a little bit later in the playoff stuff. But what matters is the way they finished, the way that they played against that team up north. And the season for me was just so much more fun than some of the other seasons that maybe there was a little bit more success just because of the way things changed and the way that this team adapted to situations. Now, I'm not saying I love watching Purdue put up points on the board, but I mean, to me, it's a successful season. All the drama that took place, all the stuff that happened afterwards from that drama, and the way that the team and the coaching staff handled the drama, that's something I think is a success in its own right, and is a success not only for now, but moving to the future as you look towards the future and build towards a new era.
Yeah, it's definitely a very cliche, I know, but it's a new day starting at Ohio State, obviously. And I hate using that one, but it actually does fit right here. But, obviously, I mentioned it, Urban Meyer stepping down and retiring. Everybody knows about it. I've been a huge Urban Meyer fan for a long time, even when he was at Florida. And I hated that they beat Ohio State and won the national championship and everything. But I always liked the way that he coached, and I liked his teams. What's your thoughts on Urban and his retirement and his success at Ohio State?
I mean, I think a lot of fans will agree with me. You never expected it to end the way it did. You never for some reason, you had this feeling like Urban Meyer was going to be there for 20 years, even if it didn't make logistical sense, because it doesn't. I mean, 7 years makes sense for a guy like Urban Meyer, who has coached as long as he has done what he has done, but he just became so much the face of Ohio State football that it kind of hit hard knowing that he was going to leave, because he was that face and built everything that we know of Ohio State football. It's kind of funny because Ohio State football has this long history. Woody Hayes, John Cooper, Earl Bruce, all these guys have defined Ohio State football in their own way, but you kind of forget about it when you have a guy like Urban Meyer who branded it his way, and that's what Ohio State football became. I mean, you look at the speed that he brought to the table with his recruiting ability, the recruiting ability alone that he brought to the Big Ten Conference. In the way that it ended, you could kind of see the writing on the wall when it did happen, but at the beginning of the season, before the drama that's been talked about on and on and on and on, before that happened, you wouldn't have anticipated something like this ending this way. But also, it's almost Urban Meyer fashion, no matter where he's gone or where he's been able to leave, he's been able to leave on his note. And that's what's so strong about this is he'll be able to leave in the Rose Bowl. I believe it's the first Rose Bowl that he'll be coaching in. He'll be able to leave 7-0 against Michigan, like I mentioned before. He controlled the whole situation and destination to his future, which I think is also kind of poetic of what he's done at Ohio State in his seasons here.
So the question that we asked once last year, and Brandon and I really haven't talked about it, but you're kind of getting there this time. Let me ask you this. Where does Urban Meyer rank in Ohio State coaching lore? Is he on par with Woody? Is he clearly the number 2 behind Woody? Is he somewhere else? Is he ahead of Woody? What's your thought on that?
I think we're in an interesting position in our generation where we're in the gap between both. So there's going to be some in our generation who think there's nobody that's going to surpass Woody. Woody Hayes is the greatest coach in Ohio State history. Then there's going to be the generation underneath us that Urban Meyer is going to be all they know. And the comparison has to be, for me, years of service, quote unquote, versus what was done in such a short time with Urban Meyer. And when I say short time, just comparative to Woody Hayes, that's where I think it comes down to the line. Am I able to get on this show and say Urban Meyer's the greatest coach in Ohio State history? Maybe not. I'm not willing to say that yet, but I am willing to say he might be the greatest college football coach to ever coach at Ohio State. But
yeah, I think you're exactly right. That's the same stance I've taken with that. It's the greatest coach to ever be in scarlet and gray, but probably not the greatest at Ohio State is exactly my sentiment there. So,
but it's hard to argue with what he did in such a short time, getting that national championship right away almost. And from there, and then building up on the record against that team up north, the way he handled that rivalry, we haven't seen that, in my opinion, since Woody Hayes. And so when it comes to lore, when we're looking 20 years from now, I think they'll be in the same conversation. Woody Hayes, Urban Meyer, that will be the conversation that people will be having, and everybody will have differing opinions. It's not like the Michael Jordan debate, but it will be the Michael Jordan, LeBron James debate.
Okay. Well, on the follow-up to Urban, obviously, is Ryan Day taking over. His first head coaching gig, if you don't count the 3 games earlier this season. Comes from a strong pedigree, obviously. You know, he coached under Chip Kelly. He's coached under some other Urban coaching tree relics. He's coached under Urban previously. I don't really expect that there's going to be a massive change, obviously, because you have so much success at Ohio State. But what do you see with Ryan Day? What's your thought on the hire, and how do you think Ohio State moves forward now with Ryan Day as the new head coach?
Well, in the birthing of the Sons of Schmidt, if you remember, Mike, I called Ryan Day Ryan O'Day. That's how much we knew. That's how much we knew about, or at least I knew about Ryan Day coming in. 17 years coaching in NFL and college, and you think, yeah, he deserves a college chance, but it's kind of, I agree with what Brandon has said on the show. With it's hard to kind of relegate whether it's a good hire now or it's not. With anything, I think in these hires, especially at the college level where you have to build up your own program, even if Urban Meyer's in the background, even if he's the protege to Urban Meyer, you still have to build your own program. And I think it's going to take time to find out, especially with his lack of experience head coaching wise at a high level and at any level really in the college game. So I think it will take some time. He'll have to build up his own recruits. We'll have to see what he can do. I mean, even as offensive coordinator, he got the guy that Urban Meyer said was, how do you word it, quote, the best I've seen at his age since I've been coaching, in Dwayne Haskins. So it's hard to tell if it's – I mean, Ryan Day deserves some credit, don't get me wrong, but it's hard to tell if Ryan Day is all of a sudden this magician offensively that can build the Ohio State program and continue the tradition and continue it and continue it and continue it until he's ready to step away, or if it's just a stopgap type guy that might not live up to the expectations. I don't think he's that guy, but it's hard to put a bow on it and say Ryan Day is the guy that should be the coach at Ohio State. And I know you'll agree with me that we think he's definitely a coach that is going to someday be at a high level. We've talked about that throughout the offseason and into the season. Like, this is the guy that you want in your program. This is definitely the guy that deserves to be a head coach, but time will tell if he's going to be the guy. I think he has a good chance at it.
Yeah, I personally kind of think it's one of those deals where, you know, you hear the old saying before about, oh, you don't want to be the guy that follows a legend. You want to be the guy that follows the guy. I think Ryan Day has the ability, based off what we've seen, that he can be a Lincoln Riley type and follow a legend and still be successful, rather than, you know, be one of the guys that has to be the in-between. I think having Urban still in the Woody will help with that transition, but I agree with you 100%. It's way too early to really come out and say if this is a great hire or not. But the flip side of it is, for me personally, is who else was you going to, you know, who else was Ohio State
would have been better?
Yeah, I can't give you a name right now that they would have got. So
the one thing that I do think is important, Ryan Day stepping into this position compared to some of those quote-unquote guys that were waiting underneath the wings of other coaches, Will Muschamp couldn't recruit like Ryan Day can.
Yep.
That's a difference that he has coming to this job so young is he understands recruiting and getting the best players, but he also understands how recruiting is changing as he takes over. And that's a huge part of it, and why the announcement was made when it was, why he is the head coach, and I think why he was selected over some guys that some Ohio State fans would have argued should have gotten a better chance, even though I know you and I would agree. I don't think there's necessarily – and this isn't dinging any coach on the staff, but there isn't necessarily a coach on the staff that could take over an Ohio State program. I think Day was the choice. I mean, and he showed that in those 3 games. The one thing that also is hard to tell in the coaching matter, and Brandon and you have both talked about this, is the whole fact that you're the administrator of the program, you're overlooking the program. Urban Meyer has had years and years and years and programs and programs and programs of success. He showed that at Bowling Green, showed it at Utah, showed it at Florida, showed it at Ohio State. We don't know that about Ryan Day, but what we do know, and what I take away from his 3 games, that was a situation where leaks upon leaks upon leaks of players, coaches could have been saying anything and everything during that period. And sure, Brett McMurphy was writing what Brett McMurphy wrote. But if you look at his sourcing in that stuff, none of it had to come. None of it came from the program itself in action as it was going on. None of it came from the walls of the Woody. And so I'm not concerned as far as administration-wise that he can run a program. I just don't know if he has the experience to understand every situation. And that's why the coaching staff that is in place now is very important in building a veteran staff around him if some of those guys leave.
No, absolutely. You're exactly right there. I mentioned it, I think, even as early or as recent as last week, that it will heavily depend on his ability to get the best staff out there, and that will greatly aid his ability to be successful. So, before we take a pause here, is there anything else that you want to get on record here? I mean, the floor is yours, but I don't want to rush you out of here, but the floor is yours. If you got anything else, go ahead. If not, I've got a little surprise for you for our commercial this week. So
let me hear this commercial.
All right. So first of all, I'm going to go ahead and tell everybody this. It's probably going to have to be cleaned up a little bit in post, so bear with me. But, Joe, this is especially for you. Now let me get everything shared with you here.
Victor's is maize and blue. And in this town, we paint it scarlet and gray. And have one thing to say. Oh, hell no! Oh, hell no!
You're too much. That's ridiculous.
Analysis, opinion, and fun. Oh, hell no. With Claire Crawford and Joe Dexter every Friday, exclusively on the Ozone Radio Network. Can I be a presidential here and plead the fifth, or is that really, can you prove it? I guess I said my name, didn't I?
Are you trying to pull a Brandon on me here? Is that what this is? So for the record, I have had that on my computer for 2 years now.
Oh my gosh.
And I have been saving it for the next time you come on this show specifically for you. So I just hope you know that.
Do you want a backstory on that?
Go for it.
Oh man. So Claire and I, Claire Crawford, my former co-host partner for many years on the Buckeye Battle Cry Radio Hour and Script Ohio, we started a new show on the Ozone that lasted 2 episodes. I mean, I'm sorry, but it lasted 2 episodes, but I was trying to think of a name for the darn show, and I'm sitting in my car and I'm cutting Ric Flair promos. I actually recorded that from a courthouse parking lot on my phone one day where I was just trying to figure out how could we promote a new show. And so that's how I cut it. And I sent it to Claire and she just started laughing, and the rest is history. I love Claire. For those of you that don't know, most of you do. Claire Crawford is just awesome. Mm-hmm. Love working with her, and she's going to be one of my good friends, and maybe someday we can get back to doing that. But yeah. Oh, hell no. Never. State up north, never. No. I was born in that state, but never.
Right? Yeah, so I've more than a few times, believe it or not, I went and found that and just played it because I laugh every time I hear it. So just wanted to go ahead and put that out there for everybody. I know, as Joe said, the show's not out there. They had to step away. Real life gets in the way, but that was probably my most favorite promo to ever listen to, and is actually the reason that we started doing the different promos and stuff we have in our breaks here. So if you recall, when this originally started, we would do just like a 15-second sound clip of just some music, just so we could stop for a minute. And then I heard that, and that started all the other stuff that we've done. So our commercials, everything trails back to that promo right there. So that was our pause here for you, buddy. So
what a great blast from the past.
So for the second segment here, though, as we get rolling again, we kind of talked about this a little bit last week before we do our picks and do our son of a Schmidt. I know you've got one lined up as a special guest, but one of the things we talked about on our chat, our group texting, and then, Brandon and I have mentioned on the show here, is whether or not there was an excitement about the Rose Bowl. Now, obviously going into the week that the playoff picks were made, the week of the Big Ten championship, there was really kind of it felt almost like it was going to be a bit of a letdown to me. And I know a lot of other ones were like, we didn't make the playoffs. It's going to be the Rose Bowl, which, it's still the Rose Bowl, but, it's kind of, it's Washington. It's not a great matchup. Obviously, Urban's retirement's kind of bumped some of that up. The more you look into it, the more you realize this could actually be a really good game. I think it'll be an entertaining game to watch. But, my question for you is, are you excited about the Rose Bowl and the thought of Urban Meyer potentially coaching in his first Rose Bowl game, going out with a win? And what's your thoughts on how that plays out for the Buckeyes?
Through our text messages that I was not excited about a Rose Bowl or potential Rose Bowl matchup with Washington, probably because what had been sold was something that it was kind of stale at that point. We had known that if they don't make the playoffs, Washington's the matchup, it's the Rose Bowl, and that's what's going to happen. And so probably going into the announcement for a few weeks, we had already known what the outcome was going to be, because I don't care what you say, Ohio State fans. I know in the back of your mind, you didn't think we were making the playoffs after losing to Purdue. So I think that's why it sat the way it did. Now thinking about it and looking at it more, obviously the Urban Meyer announcement changes it. If you are not excited for Urban Meyer's last game as a head football coach of a college program, get out of here. Yep. I mean, get out. Pretty much that's the way, it's plain and simple. But there's even some other underlying tone things that have made me more excited. And this is the first time in the college football playoff era that a Pac-12 team and Big Ten team are facing off in the Rose Bowl, which is crazy to me. So we really haven't seen this traditional matchup in quite some time. I think it's the first time Ohio State's been in the Rose Bowl in 7 years, something to that extent, 5, 6, 7 seasons. So it's something new. It's something fresh, and I am excited for January 1st. I'll be – no matter where – they could have played in the Tax Slayer Bowl like they did in 2011. I'm still watching. I mean, my excitement level might be different, but I am also excited for this matchup, looking at it closer. I think the offensive pass game for Ohio State versus the secondary of Washington is going to be one of the most exciting matchups we've seen all year, whether it's been in Big Ten play or non-conference. I think that you look at Jake Browning, an experienced guy, Myles Gaskin, the running back for Washington. He's a guy that you want to watch and you want to face as a defense. Well, maybe not with our secondary, but I am excited. I'm looking forward to the Rose Bowl now, and I'm looking forward to seeing the speed on the field for Ohio State's pass offense versus the speed on the field for the secondary of Washington. I think that's going to be the key matchup.
So with the obviously with the announcement, besides Urban Meyer and Ryan Day and all that, there's a few guys that have already announced that they're going to be leaving Ohio State early. Mike Weber just announced earlier this week. And as you know, as the listeners of this show know, I have been a huge Mike Weber fan since the day he got into Columbus.
Yeah, day one.
Obviously Draymond Jones is going to go pro after this year. There's still a couple other guys that could potentially go. Obviously everybody's announced that they're going to play in the game. They want to go out and win for Urban. I think that is added to even more so the excitement that I have been building for this game because, here's a chance, the last chance to see a lot of these guys that I really have enjoyed seeing play for Ohio State, and they're going to do so, with Urban Meyer potentially riding out like on their shoulders and, the whole ending as a champion kind of a thing. So it's definitely increased the excitement for me personally. Now, on the other side of this, obviously the disappointment coming in was in Ohio State not making the playoffs. What were your thoughts on the playoff picture, the 4 teams that are going, and what do you see potentially coming through with that?
I'm going to get some crap for this, but when you have 4 teams to choose, and you've got a season like this year, you can't get it right no matter what.
Nope.
I don't think Ohio State was inside the top 4. I wish they were inside the top 4, but I don't think they were. I was a bigger proponent of Georgia than most people were. I think I might have got a little bit of SEC crazy or something, being down here in the South a little bit. But I think that Georgia might have been the 5th team, and maybe I just have some Oklahoma hate because of what has happened to Ohio State. But, yeah, the playoff picture thing to me is old school Mike Leach kind of guy. High school is playoffs, Division II is playoffs, 1AA is playoffs, and it's a bracket, long-form bracket. The NCAA tournament in basketball, Mike Meals hates basketball, but he's going to watch the NCAA tournament most likely.
Yep.
I mean, it's excitement. It's better than what we'll talk about in our bowl picks coming up. Baylor and Vanderbilt. What? What would you rather see, Mike Meals? Baylor and Vanderbilt or another matchup in the playoffs? I mean,
hey, I've already said it before, I'm a big fan of an expanded playoff picture. One similar to the example I always use is the one you mentioned is the FCS, the 1AA, whatever it's called now, where if those guys can do a playoffs, there's no reason that the FBS can't do a playoff. So absolutely, give me an expanded playoff and let's go that way.
And I'm more than okay with bowl games that are not playoff implicated. But when you have Baylor, Vanderbilt, and some of these games that do you care about Minnesota and Georgia Tech? I know we're going to bring this, but these games don't matter.
Nope.
And they're going to be sold as if they matter because they're a bowl game. I rather see games that matter and then really good bowl games that might not have any playoff implication, but they're definitely going to be good games and good teams that deserve to be at a bowl. Mm-hmm. And that's just my opinion on it. But yeah, it's kind of crazy. I don't know what the answer is, if it's 8, if it's 16. I'm all for every single major conference winner getting a crack at it and even having a couple wild card teams get a chance at it as well. I'm okay. Hear me out here. I'm not oh my gosh, UCF is the national champion. They deserve it. I'm not saying that they deserve a playoff chance in this current system at all, but why don't we want to see the Houstons of the world, the UCFs of the world, Memphises of the world get a chance at playing some of the bigger teams and get a chance?
Hey, we had a 16 knockoff of one last year in the men's basketball tournament. So
the Boise State Oklahoma game from many years ago, there's so many games where at least some of these teams are going to be able to compete with some of the other bigger schools. So why not give them a chance? We know they're not going to most likely win a championship or win more than one playoff game, but at least give one of the little fives a chance. I think that it would be a great matchup that way and get rid of some of these stupid some of the ones you were mentioning last week on the show. I'm just sitting there laughing. This is really happening right now. I'm glad that you guys didn't take like super time to research those games and picks.
Yeah.
Though I will give you credit because you beat the Zim. The Zim, you beat the Zim.
Well, the Georgia Southern Eastern Michigan game is the highlight of the offseason, I'm sure, for everyone.
Oh,
no, man, like for me with the playoff thing, and it's funny that you kind of went there, but, in our lifetime, you've had surprising national champions, right? I think it was 84 BYU was, won a national title. In the current system, they will never have another national championship opportunity. And I'm not saying that that's something that you need to do every year. Like, I don't think the group of 5 best team is always going to be able to, go deep into a playoff run. But the fact that it'll never happen again is kind of a motivator to me to say, yes, we should expand this at least some, just so that you can have some of those runs, and
Exactly. And the one thing that, like, in your neck of the woods, wouldn't you have loved to seen Tom Herman's Cougars go up in a playoff opportunity, especially after the Sugar Bowl where they beat Ole Miss?
No, they went to the Peach Bowl and beat Florida State.
Peach Bowl and Florida State, that's right.
Yeah.
That teams like that where you might as well, they deserve a chance.
Oh yeah. Well, that was that one year where Oklahoma opened the season. It wasn't technically a home game for Houston because it was at NRG and not at their on-campus stadium. But, like, that stadium was rocking.
Yeah.
My wife and I went to that game. We were sitting, 20-some rows up. We were in the end zone. And, man, the NRG was rocking like it, better than it does for Houston Texans games. So, absolutely. I think it'd be great to see that, in the years where it's deserved.
Yes.
If the best group of 5 team is, 9-3, well, I'm sorry about your luck.
Sorry.
But it's not that's not typically the case, right? You have one that's maybe one loss or, goes undefeated. And granted, like Brandon mentioned last week, I think it was, most of the time the top 5 or top 10 that is out there now is going to run that schedule the same way.
Mm-hmm.
But why not give them the shot? Because it could be an interesting game or two, and they could make some noise. And, every year you have somebody that kind of seems to come out of nowhere. You have George Mason, the one year in the tournament that went to like the Final Four or something.
And we can even sense as football fans, I'm a bigger eye test guy than most when it comes to these things. But there's going to be some times in the playoffs where a team goes undefeated in the American and they don't deserve a playoff chance. I get that, but there are certain years like UCF with Milton and with Ward at Houston. There's years where that these teams could compete with the higher echelon teams and deserve a chance. Football is football. I know there's analytics and numbers, but this ain't baseball. It's all about the eye test to me. And I know I'm going to get crap for that, but the eye test tells you a lot more about close football games than any numbers really are going to at most levels. And Alabama, Michigan State is an example of that a couple years ago in the playoffs. There's times where you just know the duds are the duds are the duds are the duds, and why not give another team another chance? But I guess we got a committee and we got this all queued and figured out, and that's why I'm more of a Mike Leach fan of playoffs, because the playoff whole picture will clear out the eye test issues versus the numbers issues at the end of the day in good matchups. And some teams are going to easily move on, and that we knew they should, even though they weren't going to get the chance.
All right. Okay, man. So with that being said, what we'll do is we'll pause here for just a brief second. When we come back, we will get your son of a Schmidt. I know you've been excited about getting to rant for a minute here, so give us about 15 seconds. We'll be right back.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for your favorite weekly segment.
Son of a Schmidt.
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 All right, Joe. So as I mentioned, it is Son of a Schmidt time. I know that more than a few times in our text messages and whatnot we've sent back and forth, you've already popped a few Son of a Schmidts on us as it is. But for the first time in a long time, I'm going to give you the floor, and let's hear it, man. What's your Son of a Schmidt this week?
Well, I'm going to focus on one man and one man only. Well, it's commissioners in general, but mostly Big Ten Commissioner Jim Delaney on a couple of issues. The playoffs is the main issue, though. This guy, to me, when I hear him talk, he's catering to what reporters and medias want to hear. I'm a reporter, so I'm saying this. I'm going out on a limb to say this, but when it comes to playoff expansion and all those things, we keep hearing different things from Delaney. When Ohio State wasn't selected, he told I believe it was Nicole Auerbach with The Athletic, obviously we'd love to be in a system every year, but we have respect for those chosen and offer sincere congratulations to the teams picked, Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame. in Oklahoma. But then we get more news that he's ready to talk expansion in college football playoff expansion. I believe it came out today where he was talking about that with The Athletic. In the same outlet, he said, the Big Ten would be happy to discuss structure issues with colleagues. It's probably a good idea, given all the conversations and noise around the issue, to have discussions with our colleagues. The Big Ten would definitely have conversations. Now, that's a good, cute, meaty quote, but what I pull out of it is a bunch of emptiness and just a bunch of, this is what people want me to say, so I'm going to say it. That doesn't mean any change is going to happen. We'll discuss it, and we'll have some conversations. He did the same thing in regards to the potential of, I believe it was reconfiguring the Big Ten Conference to have the best two teams.
Yeah, they wanted to change how the championship game was picked, right?
Yeah, here's what he told Dennis Dobb. Let me know if this quote sounds familiar. It's an item that has been discussed before. There is actually more discussion now than there was 4 years ago. Can we get past it? We're past the discussion phase. We started talking about expanded playoffs years and years and years ago. We've talked about the Big Ten East issue years and years and years and years. Jim Delaney, it's time to stop discussing and time to make some action. And all the commissioners need to make some type of action. It can't be talked about at this stage. Until somebody steps up from a major conference and says, this is what we need, nobody's going to follow suit. Everybody's going to have these quote-unquote discussions and decide what they feel is best, which is following their media contracts, sticking with what they need to do that way, and acting like they're having discussions instead of actually doing it. Until that happens, until somebody steps up, and Jim Delaney's not going to be the one, I can tell you right now. Jim Delaney's not the one that's going to be the guy that steps up and makes this announcement and stands behind it. Until we get an SEC, we got some from the SEC. We've seen it a little bit. We've gotten a little bit from the Big 12. But until we have some faces on this issue, it's not going to change. And everybody's talking about these whole issues changing in front of us with how the football playoff is selected. We had some issues this year. We've had some issues in the past. There was a lot of talk about the issues this year and how it's going to change college football in the playoff picture. Well, guess what? Where's that talk now? Where's that talk going to be when all these bowls are done? When all the people that made revenue from these bowls are happy? Where's the conversation going to go then? And then, finally, to son of a Schmidt this whole thing, you're going to mess with high school football on Fridays? I know, blah, blah, blah. It's something that has to be done. Media rights, media contract, making the media people happy, making our outlets happy. But poor Northwestern. I mean, 2 years ago, it was 2 games they're going to play on Friday, I believe. This year, now in 2019, they have to play the biggest game on their schedule on a Friday. The coach doesn't want to do it, Pat Fitzgerald. Nobody wants any of this. We get enough football during the week, every single darn day. I think you can stay away from Fridays. College football Saturday is sacred. You can have your MAC games on a Tuesday or Wednesday. You can have your American games on a Thursday. I don't care. But when you start messing with the Big Ten schedule and putting games on a Friday and doing what the NFL is doing, it proves one thing and one thing only. College football is about revenue. It's not about the players. It's not about the athletes. And that's all you're showing when you put games on Fridays. Son of a f***ing Schmidt.
Well, first of all, that was a pretty good one. My first thought for you is I agree with you 100%. I hate the concept of Friday night football being a college football thing, or being, interfering with high school football, I guess I should say.
What are you going to – being in Texas, for example, JT Barrett is playing on a Friday. The biggest game on Ohio State's schedule someday is on a Friday. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of conflict there.
Nope, yeah. Man, I've mentioned it before. I live 2 blocks north of the most expensive high school stadium in the country. They take football very serious around here. I mean, dude, the stadium in my town literally has corporate suites in it. There is a sporting goods store in the South. I know you have them in North Carolina called Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Yeah.
They have bought the naming rights to this high school stadium. Okay, so yes, it is a big deal. Obviously, I mentioned it before, the amount of talent that comes out just to this school district is insane. Katy High School, the one that I'm zoned to, has had a class that played for the state title every year since like 1997 or 92 or something. Every class has played at least once. It's a big deal here. This year, the only team that beat Katy beat them twice. It's North Shore, and North Shore just knocked off Lake Travis, which Ohio State fans know because that's where Baldwin and Wilson are from. So, yeah, it's a big deal, and it will be very difficult to get the Big Ten brand out there to guys that are spending Friday night at a high school stadium, because unless it is like next year when Ohio State plays Northwestern, obviously I will definitely be staying at home to watch the Ohio State game. But any other games, I'm not going to go out of my way to stay home and watch a Big Ten game of, Purdue versus Penn State, because that will not appeal. That's not going to draw in the mildly interested fans. So I think it's a terrible call.
What's the next step? Are you going to have a Friday night game at Ohio Stadium?
It's
crazy, can you imagine that?
No. Well, and that's just it. I mean, look, Texas, Florida, California, Ohio, Pennsylvania, even Michigan to a good extent. These are high school states.
Yeah.
Why a conference that is based around an area that is known for high school football wants to play college games on Friday night to compete with that, I will not understand. Not one bit.
The whole idea is to cater to the Foxes and ESPNs of the world that want to continue to produce this content that's getting ratings. And with Ohio State being one of the most watched college football programs this year, I think 3 of the top 7 were Ohio State games this year, the most viewed on TV. At some point, the push from Northwestern in Chicago, where nobody really is going to complain about a Friday game, is going to grow from, well, if we can get a Northwestern Ohio State, okay, but we really want those Friday games at Ohio Stadium. We want them at the Big House. We want them at Beaver Stadium. When it gets to that point, then we're completely throwing out the tradition of college football, in my opinion, and high school football. We're blending them together, and that's, to be honest with you, I'm not watching the NFL on a Thursday unless I have to.
Yeah.
It's a whole thing that it can just really dilute the game, and it can really dilute high school football and its meaning as well. What are you going to tell a recruit that's been – I know with some weather and stuff this year that a lot of games haven't been played always on Fridays, but you already have coaches coming into parents' houses and saying, we need you to leave a semester early. Yeah. Is there going to be a point where a 5-star recruit says – or a coach says to a 5-star recruit, we want you to visit this game. Could you miss your high school game for this? It's on a Friday. I mean, is that going to come? When do we draw a line? That's my whole point. I know that's probably never going to happen, but at some point we have to draw a line in this.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. And, it's crazy enough as it is in the world of high school recruiting and college football now. It just, for me, it sucks because it's because of the reason I love college football over NFL. And we've talked about it. It's the tradition. It's the aura of playing at Ohio Stadium, Notre Dame Stadium, the Big House, Neyland Stadium, wherever you go, right? It's the things that happen during those games that makes college football so much fun. And how are you going to have a skull session on a Friday afternoon? I mean, really? It's rough enough as it is on a Saturday night game to do skull session and then tailgate all day. But now you want to throw in that people have to do skull session. Oh, and there's work and Friday afternoon traffic. And I am 100% opposed to the Friday night football games for college. So
forgive me, but you might hate me for this, but the Cleveland Browns were built for Friday. Put them on Friday.
Until this season.
My whole point is you're exactly right. Tradition is what has built college football to what it is and why so many people watch it. And taking away from that tradition is just it's shitty.
Yep.
It sucks.
Yep. Absolutely.
What's your son of a Schmidt?
Well, Mine is a bit of a rant that it's not really a negative rant. It's just something that I don't like about college football. I hinted towards it a little bit ago with Mike Weber announcing that he was leaving early. And obviously Draymond Jones is leaving early. And every year people leave early. We're assuming that Dwayne Haskins is leaving early. I mean, I haven't seen anything as of now that's officially said he is, but
Our Father who art in heaven, keep Dwayne. Right. Oh, sorry.
But my son of a Schmidt is I absolutely hate the fact that these kids who, besides the fact that they're not properly compensated for what they do, I'm not getting into that, but I hate when they declare early and go to the NFL. It is 100% a selfish thing because I grow attached to these guys when they're wearing scarlet and gray, as many people do. I've mentioned it before. I've loved Paris Campbell for a long time. I've loved Mike Weber. I love the fact that I get to see Paris Campbell's last game as a senior. It kills me, and I hate the fact that I will never see Mike Weber as a senior at Ohio State. And I can't fault these guys. I've said it before. I said it last week when we were talking about guys that were sitting out bowl games. I don't blame you at all. Go make that money. That's what you went to college for. That's why you've put in all the hours in the summer and in high school and in middle school. I get it. But I absolutely hate that these kids, when they declare early and go to the NFL and rob us of that senior season, the chance to, see one more magical play, see one more 79-yard run for a touchdown or something. And it's 100% selfish. I do not deny that. I'm proud of these guys. Move on as you need to. But my son of a Schmidt is I hate early declarations and the guys that go to the NFL early. So, son of a Schmidt.
I got a couple questions. I got to follow up on this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is your son of a Schmidt, you said it's not on the players, but how much do you feel is it the system in place that we're not going to see this anymore versus just the way that the game has changed in certain ways? Like I look back, we're not going to see Nick Bosa ever again in the way that we saw him the last time. It kind of sucks as a fan, as you mentioned. But I think the last time we actually saw something where a player came back when you really didn't have to, besides Dwayne Haskins, if he goes to the NFL draft this year, was Joey Bosa in the Fiesta Bowl, and then he got hurt. I mean, so it's a really tough road to kind of figure out what's right and what's wrong, but I don't know if it's players doing what they have to do, if they should play. Like, where's the line there? Like, and you kind of mentioned it already. Is there anything these programs or college football can do to kind of make it an easier situation?
Anything short of figuring out a way to compensate them, I don't think there is. Obviously, Ohio State's not going to pay Joey Bosa $30 million to come back and play in his last bowl game. But, anything short of that, I can't see it. The one that sticks out in my mind, I mentioned it last week. I know he's not well liked by most Ohio State fans, even though he's from Ohio, is Jake Butt. He went and played in the bowl game, blows his knee out, probably cost himself some draft position. But, I don't know how you balance that. I've said it before. If it's a top 15 guy and there's a meaningless exhibition, I have no problem. Yeah, make that step, sit out, go pro. When you see guys that aren't in the top, 2-3 rounds, whatever, that want to skip out or go pro early like Noah Brown did a couple years ago, I don't understand it. Go make your money. Yeah. That's fine. But yeah, I don't have the answer to that, Joe. I can't.
And I better correct myself before Ohio Buckeye Nation lambastes me. I do know that Joey Bosa wasn't hurt in the Fiesta Bowl. He was ejected for targeting.
Yes, it was targeting.
My bad. And I think I was getting Nick and Joey confused there, which is easy to do. But the whole point is you want to have that last moment, and this is going to sound weird as hell, but you want to have that lasting moment with these players that you've gotten to know over the years, and you want to see them play in their last game and leave in a way that is kind of more of a traditional standard. And we're not going to see that as much anymore, I don't think. There's going to be a point in time if we continue in this system where guys are going to be playing, I mean, we're already seeing it with Christian McCaffrey in the Rose Bowl. You're going to see guys play, and then you're also going to see guys say, hey, I don't care if my team's doing this. I'm stepping out. And it's going to be my worry is this is going to become so much of a norm that everybody's going to do it. And we're going to get to a point where these bowl practices are so important because you're going to be playing the new guys that you start the year after. When does it become that?
I actually can see that at some point becoming more and more, not the norm, but I can see it becoming regular, I should say.
I get a running back. I get a guy that has a certain amount of wheels wanting to take a extra game off because they only have so much mileage on the tires. But to see some of the positions and some of the guys, it is disheartening. But what are you going to do?
Yeah. All right, man. Well, on that note, let's pause real quick for station identification. We'll come back. We'll take a look at Schmidt picks, get some bowl picks for this upcoming week here, and then we'll tie this one off. So we'll be right back.
You are listening to the Sons of Schmidt podcast on the Ozone Radio Network, presented by Hayes and Cannon. The ORN is the online radio home of the Buckeye Sloopcast, the Silver Bullets podcast, Across the Field, and of course, the Sons of Schmidt, with new episodes broadcast every day of the week. For more information, go to www.theozone.net. And now, back to the show.
All right, so before we get into our picks, Joe, there's two things I want to go over. First of all, last week, Brandon and I both missed the Arizona State game. We both got Tulane, Utah State, and Appalachian State correct. We still have UAB and the San Diego State game to play as of the time that we're recording. So I don't have those ones on here, but I've left those on our notes. For those of you that were wondering, we both took UAB. He took San Diego State. I took Ohio in that game. Now, for the picks that we're going to make, Brandon has emailed me his picks. He has South Florida, Toledo, BYU, Memphis, Houston, Buffalo, Hawaii, Boston College, Minnesota, Cal, Duke, Wisconsin, and Baylor winning over the next 7 to 10 days. Just because of the days that we record and everything goes live. So just wanted to get those out on tape. So looking at these exciting bowl game matchups, which I know you've been telling me for the last week how ready you are to pick these. First game that we're going to look at is starting on December 20th, the Gasparilla Bowl, which I have no idea what the hell that is. I think it's some kind of lawn care stuff, if I remember right. Being played in Tampa, Florida, matches up Marshall versus South Florida. What do you see in that game, dude?
Give me the Bulls. I really don't care anything about this game, but I'll take the Bulls just because I'm an American guy. I think that South Florida has lost 5 straight, and I'm still picking them. That's probably stupid, but it's Bull season.
Yeah, why not? It's a hell of a time to come back from it, right?
Yeah.
I'm actually going to go with Marshall, and the only thought of this is the fact that the coach at Marshall used to coach with Urban Meyer.
There you go.
So I have zero confidence in that pick, just FYI. But
is that Doc Holliday?
Doc Holliday, yep. So our next bowl game matches it's the Bahamas Bowl, which is obviously in the Bahamas. They got real creative with their name. It'll be Toledo versus Florida International.
Oh, golly. I'd rather pick the amount of people that are going to be in attendance in this game, which is going to be under 5.
Yes.
They just
that
do
includes
this.
The players.
They just do this game for the airtime on ESPN, but I guess I'll go Maction on this one. I'll go Toledo for no reason.
Sounds good. We'll both go with Toledo on that. I have a steadfast rule that if I have no care whatsoever, I typically start in Ohio and then go to the MAC and then flip a coin. So I'm going to go with Toledo.
There you
Next is the Idaho Potato Bowl in Boise, Idaho on December 21st, which matches up BYU versus Western Michigan.
This would have been a hell of a Christmas present, wouldn't it have?
You get to go spend your Christmas in Boise.
I'm going to pick my Maction pick, and also I grew up like 2 hours from this campus, so I'll pick Western Michigan.
Okay, so I'm glad to say here that this is actually the first one that you've gotten wrong for sure. I'm going to go with BYU here. So, mainly just because I can't bring myself to root for Western Michigan, but
row the boat.
What's that?
Row the boat.
Yeah, rode it right to Minneapolis, right? And the next installment of the Creative Bowl game names is the Birmingham Bowl in Birmingham, Alabama.
That's creative.
I know, right? They are on it, dude. It's Wake Forest versus Memphis. So are you going with the semi-hometown pick there, or are you going to go with Memphis?
I'm literally 45 minutes away from the Wake Forest campus. I've been there several times to cover high school football. Ain't picking them.
Nope.
The bowl season is about offense. It always is. Defense is thrown out the window. It's like a backyard brawl, and Memphis has the fourth best total offense this year behind, I believe it's Oklahoma, Ohio State, UCF, and then Memphis. So I'll take Memphis to score like 65 points.
Oh, yeah, easily. They're going to crush Wake Forest, I think. So moving on the 22nd is the Armed Forces Bowl in Fort Worth, Texas, which matches Army versus Houston. This might actually be a good game for the record.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a good one. I'm going with your Cougars. I like Houston. I root for Houston. I might be a little biased in this pick. I don't know. If you can stop their running game, I know Army throws more than the traditional Army team, but I'll take Houston all day.
Yeah, it's been disappointing for the Cougars with Derek King going down, their quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
He came in. He was a highly touted recruit, came in, played some wide receiver, moved back to quarterback, which is what he was recruited as. As far as I know, he will not be back for this game, but Houston still has a pretty damn good team, so I'm going to go with Houston here also. And one that they should probably find a new name for, may want to go with Mobile, Alabama Bowl. Instead, it is the Dollar General Bowl, which just sounds like a pile of shit in a bowl game. So you have December 22nd's matchup, which is Buffalo versus Troy. What do you see in this one?
Not to be confused with the Family Dollar or Dollar Tree Bowl. Those are coming up. Most of them might be Division II bowls. I don't know. But I'm going with one of my hometown favorite guys, born and raised in Muskegon, Michigan. Tyree Jackson is the quarterback for Buffalo. Lance Leopold is the coach over there. He went to my rival high school, which is Muskegon Mona Shores. You like that? Muskegon Mona Shores?
I'd hate to have to spell that out every day.
So I'm rooting for Buffalo. I'm going to pick them here, and I really who's going to go to who's going to have more people at their bowl game? The Dollar General Mobile Bowl or Bahamas Bowl?
I'm going to say the Dollar General Bowl just because the Troy faithful can make the quick trip over.
That's true, and there might be some $1 little trinkets that they're giving away. I don't know.
That's right, or like an aisle of food in each like row of the stands that's expired, but they're still selling.
Some steakums that just melt when you cook them.
Right. I'm actually going to take Troy in that game, by the way. So next on the 22nd is the Hawaii Bowl, which is ironically played in Hawaii by Hawaii. So they really went out on this one, which they take on Louisiana Tech. What do you see in this one with a 10:30 Eastern kick, by the way? So it'll be, again, some late night whack action for everybody on the 22nd.
When I started to do some instant analysis on this game, all I pictured was Brandon Zimmerman with an umbrella drink. And so I'm picking Hawaii.
Sure, why not? Absolutely. This is an ode to our missing co-host as he's sipping a Mai Tai right now anyway. So next, moving after Christmas, in the First Responder Bowl on December 26th, I believe we might be a little further along than we needed to be on picks here, but I don't care. I'm making them anyways. December 26th, First Responder Bowl, Dallas, Texas, which is Boston College versus Boise State.
I like the Broncos. Give me Boise State. I really don't have a reason why besides I like offense and I like Boise State in bowl games because they generally do well in bowl games.
And I don't care for Boston College, so I'm going to go with Boise here also.
Hashtag ACC offense.
There you go. In the quick lane, I believe this is the one that used to be the Little Caesars Bowl at one time.
Ford Field.
That's right, which it's going to be a crap fest. That's a shot back at you for the Browns comment earlier there, Lions fan. This is Minnesota versus Georgia Tech, the rare game that a team from the South plays a Big Ten team at home for a bowl game. What do you see in this one?
Paul Johnson's last game, all I got to say is triple option, row that boat, baby. Triple option, row the boat. I got Georgia Tech.
Yeah, I really want to say PJ Fleck's going to have these guys playing well, but they're a young team. We talked about it when they played Ohio State earlier this season. Minnesota is not ready yet. I'm going with Ja Tech here also. December 26th, the last game on that day in Phoenix, Arizona, is the Cheez-It Bowl. I wish I was making these names up, Joe. This is TCU, who has fell off the map, versus California.
My favorite part about this Cheez-It Bowl is I was doing some research before our show, and I was just like, who am I going to pick in this game? And there's this whole talk in these previews from the media across the nation, mostly the national blogs and stuff. Cal has a stunning defense. Cal's got the defense. And it's like they went 7-5. They're in the Pac-12.
Right.
They don't have defense in the Pac-12. And Gary Patterson's a bull coach.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take TCU.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with the Horned Frogs here also. So, wow, we've hit a couple here in a row. The last three we got all on December 27th, which will be the last round of bowl games that we'll pick before we do our show looking at the actual Rose Bowl, just for those of you guys that are listening. Starting with the Independence Bowl in Shreveport, you've got Temple versus Duke.
I've done no research on what players in these stupid bowls are playing and not playing. I'm assuming here that Daniel Jones is playing for Duke. If Daniel Jones is playing, then I like Daniel Jones in an offensive shootout in Shreveport.
All right. I'm actually going to flip this one. I'm going with Temple just because by that time, everyone at Duke will be tied up with the basketball program and forget that football is still a sport. So I'm going to take Temple.
I live here. They still don't remember that it's a sport. It don't matter what time of the year it is.
I believe that. And a game that Brandon and I talked about last week, it's going to be a lot of fun. The Pinstripe Bowl at New York Yankees Stadium matches 7-5 hot weather Miami versus 7-5 Wisconsin. What do you see in this New York City matchup?
I think just because I hate Wisconsin, that they should have to wear Yankee pinstripe uniforms while they play.
Kind of like what Notre Dame did there earlier this year?
Yeah, except like real baseball uniforms. They should have to no numbers because that's the Yankees. They should have to do that. But I really didn't even do any research in this game because I hate Wisconsin. Never Wisconsin. I'll never pick Wisconsin no matter what it means for my overall record. So Miami, Mark Rick's 10-6 in bowl games. So.
Oh, wow. Look at Joe dropping the knowledge there, man. I'm actually going to go with Wisconsin just because I think the cold will eventually get the Hurricanes here. All right. Now, Joe, before we do this last pick, I know we've talked about this. This is the matchup you have looked forward to all season. This is the only bowl game to face off with a 6-6 team versus a 6-6 team. You have Baylor and Vanderbilt playing in the Academy Sports and Outdoors Texas Bowl right here in Houston. Who you taking in this matchup?
Have you got free tickets for this yet?
I have to check, actually.
they might have sent you some. You might want to go look in your mailbox.
I think if I buy a 2 liter of Coke, you get like 4 free ones. It's almost like a Michigan game.
I was going to say, that's what happens up there. My first thought when I saw this was, especially since it's on the 27th and it's the last one we did, you kind of try and build up. And then all of a sudden I thought, oh, this is a cute basketball game, Scott Drew versus Bryce Drew. Football-wise, I was like, I like Keyshawn Vaughn. He used to play at Illinois. He's with Vanderbilt. I like that Shermer kid, the quarterback Kyle Shermer. So I guess I'll take Vanderbilt. But there's no Texas, you can do better, man.
Well, the thing with this is this bowl game, it's a relatively new one. It was originally built up specifically to potentially have Texas play Texas A&M in a bowl game. That's why it's, Big 12.
Well, this ain't Texas A&M, let me tell you that.
Yeah, this is a far cry from what they were shooting for. I think Vanderbilt wins this game, but I have zero desire to watch. I would probably watch high school football still that night instead. So, I'm going with Vanderbilt in that.
If they're putting these games on Friday, you wouldn't have heard my son of a Schmidt.
Right. So, all right, man. Well, with that being said, excuse me, before we wrap everything up, is there anything else that you got on your mind? We're going to close this one off, but last chance to get something out there, Joe.
I'm just looking forward to the Rose Bowl, looking forward to seeing what Ryan Day can do as head coach at Ohio State, looking forward to seeing son of a Schmidt, the sons of Schmidt grow, and listening to you guys. Enjoy the show, and glad to be on. And right, BVO's coming up, I hear, so people put your earbuds in.
That's right. It's going to be exciting. We're going to get all kinds of Tate Martell news from BVO when he's here. As much as I love Mike Weber, he loves Tate Martell, so just be on the lookout for that. Joe, I can't thank you enough for coming in and filling in for Brandon. I know, as I mentioned at the top of the show, I know there's a lot of Buckeye fans out there that are glad that you're still around. I know we don't see as much from you. You don't get on the Twitter machine as much anymore, but it's good to know you're still around. We still love having you be a part of the fan base and, checking in when you can. So again, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate that you came on. I hope you've had a good time. So
had a blast.
Perfect, man. With that being said, I know you don't do a whole lot of the Twittering, but you want to put your Twittering handle out there for people in case they want to follow you at all?
Once every 3 years when I get mad, make sure you head on over to twitter.com/Buckeye Radio to see what I tweet about the Buckeyes. And just make sure you follow these guys on the Ozone and the Ozone Radio Network. There's a bunch of great shows going right now, a bunch of great content. Enjoy reading what Brandon and Mike write, and just make sure you check out theozone.net and give those guys clicks, man. That's what matters.
I appreciate that, Joe. So, all right, brother, on that note, we're going to go ahead and tie this one off. Next week, Brandon should be back. After the bowl game, we get into the off season, going into National Signing Day as that comes around, even though it's lost some of its luster. We'll still have a couple more people come on. Like I mentioned, Janelle and Ben will be on. I've got some other people we're trying to get some stuff lined up. So we're going to try to continue on through at least to the spring game again this year. And then we'll probably pause as we get closer to baseball season and move into fall camp. But with that being said, Joe, again, thank you for being here. Go Bucks. OH.
Ayo, go Bucks.
Buckeye Nation, make sure you're getting the latest news and episodes from the Sons of Schmidt podcast. You can like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Sons of Schmidt. You can follow us on Twitter at Sons of Schmidt, or email the show, sonsofschmidt@gmail.com. And look for us on Hayes and Cannon at theozone.net.